Hello everyone, my name is Creamy Port. I'm going to be presenting a little bit about generative AI, gamification, and overall the evolution of technology in the classroom and how it evolves and changes over time to really adapt to the technology of the day as well as to match individual student needs. This presentation is going to go through all different types of topics, so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. So, a quick introduction about generative AI. This is really talking about technologies that are artificially intelligent based. These are technologies that are creating new content. They're probably giving simulated conversations or adapting instructions. So, think of tools like Copilot, ChatGPT, or Khan Academy's Khan Migo. These are technology based tools that are currently used in the classroom, but generative AI can be utilized in different capacities. When we talk about why it matters in education, you really want to think about how much time and effort is really expended by teachers to provide individualized students' experiences. Generative AI in most recent years has been utilized to provide personalized education systems, really providing immediate feedback to students and really allowing teachers to adapt instruction to meet very different types of different learning styles. In terms of challenges, when you think about generative AI, some of the common current concerns are regarding ethical concerns as well as the amount of training that it needs to be taken to provide proper adequate training to teachers so that they can implement generative AI into their classroom, but also the real big risk of possibly like over reliance on generative AI. A really good quote that I tend to follow is AI does not replace educator, it really just enhances how they teach. So as you really think about generative AI, really think about how this allows students and teachers the ability to be able to match different learning styles and different educational styles to learn the same material. There are so many different and complicated ways of learning the same material in different ways. So generative AI is really just cutting down the thinking time and really getting straight into the learning part, and allowing teachers the ability to adapt to each individual student, and really being able to meet every student where they're at. Let's quickly talk about how generative AI can help and also hinder educational systems that we have today. There are some really great, powerful benefits to having generative AI in education. Particularly, my personal favorite is the real time adaptive feedback. And this really means that generative AI can meet each individual student where they're currently at, by monitoring how they're learning the particular material and maybe adapting to maybe focus on particular areas of deficits that really gives teachers the amount of time to maybe just take off some administrative burden off of them so they can focus in on things like grading and less on like creating and generating new learning materials to meet each individual student needs. Think of students that may have diverse needs or maybe students that English is not their first language. This is a really great opportunity for these teachers to meet each individual student where they are. With every great benefit, we also have to talk about the challenges. One of the big concerns about that most people in the public eye have regarding generative AI is academic dishonesty. Students relying too much on artificial intelligence to complete their assignments and not actually learning. Additionally, some other issues are regarding issues of bias in terms of how generative AI has been learning from what individual data sets and maybe creating some inequities. Additionally, when we talk about generative AI, one of the big concerns is also proper training because with any technology, you want to make sure that those educators are learning at the same pace and that there aren't any deficits. Some teachers aren't as familiar with AI or might not feel as comfortable using this particular technology, but proper education and training will definitely lessen that anxiety that they might have. Additionally, there's also a main concern about over reliance on AI, where that maybe students aren't doing as much critical thinking and problem solving. However, I would like to highlight that these are issues that are always being currently addressed, and generative AI is only getting better with every given day. But that these are current concerns and drawbacks, but that are most likely going to slowly disappear as the technology changes every single year, as well as some of these drawbacks can be adapted to generative AI, particularly making sure that students are meeting critical thinking and problem solving skills. Those are skill sets that it just depends on the generative AI that is being currently used. So everything has its benefits and as well as its drawbacks. As we look ahead in the future of generative AI, there will be definitely redefining roles in the classroom. While educators will always be at the forefront of the learning designer and facilitator, maybe generative AI can be assisting with adapting the content, providing the feedback, and keeping track of the student progress. While students will have more autonomy in how they learn and how they engage in the classroom, we're able to, with generative AI, meet the student closer to where they are and really maybe provide more personalized prompts, a more individualized explanations to certain problem sets, and really allowing students to learn at their own pace. Without having to particularly wait for the teacher to respond. And it also really can change the level of engagement for the student. When we look at curriculum that's provided by generative AI that's meeting each individual student profession different learning styles, you see that it's more dynamic, more flexible, really learning from all the information it's learning from the student's interest to the student's level of knowledge and overall performance to really find and hone in on the clear deficits that the students having. Think of maybe some of the generative AI within Khan Academy, like Khan Mingo, which is already showing us that with proper facilitators and the right amount of guidance, the students will get to the right answers. And generative AI didn't give them the answer, only provided them with the tools that they needed to provide the particular problems that they're trying to solve. As we look into the future, I'm really looking forward to seeing how teachers, while they remain an essential part of the learning part of the classroom, they're really using AI to support their instruction and providing that needed human connection, as well as providing a new level of understanding on a global scale, as well as making sure that the ethical standpoints of the classroom are always maintained, because those are things that can never be fully automated. Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about gamification in the classroom. Gamification really talks about bringing gaming elements to learning in the classroom. This isn't playing a game. This is really learning while also playing a game. This is taking maybe possibly more complicated information, but providing students the ability to be a little bit more boosted, more engaged. Students are able to receive immediate feedback similar to generative AI, keep track of their progress, but visually, they're able to have a sense of accomplishment. And this really allows students to retain more information and provide them better problem solving. Think of platforms like Duolingo, where those streaks and those bars allow students to know how and track how they're doing in languages. Duolingo also provides other things like chess and math as outside of, as well as music outside of just languages for you to learn. Additionally, think of complicated things like in STEM, in science, technology, engineering, and math, where there are complex issues and problem solving sets that you need to solve. With things like Classcraft or Kahoot or Quizlet, students are able to foster a new level of participation in like on a large or online setting to learn a little bit more applied concepts in a more realistic sense. So those are always really great. And additionally, it really allows students to not only meet their academic skill sets, but also provide social emotional growth. Students are not just able to be more of learners, they're able to be more confident, more curious, and collaborate with others as well in a game sense. So that's always really great to have in the classroom. While gamification has really great potential, there are some challenges that we do need to talk about. The first part, implementation. It takes a lot of time and training to be able to support a gamified tool to have in the classroom. You need to have not only the proper training, but really having the understanding to learn and understand the game itself, as well as how it will be applied to your classroom. It is overwhelming, and to some teachers, it can be a very disconnected part of their job. So implementing these and as well as the time constraint that it comes into the classroom tends to lead teachers away from applying gamification learning in their classroom. Another is design. Sometimes there are games that provide too much feedback, which is a very big cognitive overload that can maybe deter students from staying engaged. Not every game is meant for every single learner. So being able to seek and figure out what is actually fun versus becoming a learning obstacle for your students is very important. There is a saying regarding like a fun game isn't automatically a good lesson. And so that I would keep that in mind. Sometimes bringing a game to the classroom might not meet the learning milestones that you were hoping. So possibly not implementing that particular game in that particular topic would be a suggestion. But also thinking about equity and access. There are so many different levels of technology offered at every institution across the country and around the world that while gamification seems like a very fun and engaging tool to have, there are significant tech difficulties in under-resourced schools, as well as overall, like mentioned earlier, faculty resistance, teachers that might not feel as comfortable with technology and wanting them in their classroom just yet. But continuing to being willing to explore these options are always interesting and always engaging for students. So sometimes maybe stepping outside of your comfort zone is definitely something I would recommend. Let's talk about how gamification has really transformed the classroom. Gamification allows students to feel more collaborative and inclusive in the classroom. Students feel more comfortable in participating because there are lower stakes. It helps them build their confidence. And essentially, students get recognized with badges and points and leveling up. So they're feeling that level of confidence slowly increasing as they learn more material. With gamification, students are able to have the chance to feel more successful, more engaged, in maybe they might not so in more traditional instructional ways. It also supports different learning styles. Some students might be more visual versus others can be more verbal as well as more competitive. Then you also have the student that's more introverted and these types of games are able to meet different students wherever they are. So this allows different pathways to succeed and feel engaged. Another big part is the equity. Gamification really allows students to learn more information, more customized, and meet them where they are. Some students, they're able to maybe more easily support their learning styles, as well as really giving students the opportunity to be okay with building their resilience, being able to normalize failure and encourage them to keep on trying to be a part of the process. No student is perfect, so this is a really good way to showcase them to learn more material and that they will slowly get better. Additionally, students are able to learn further and further as they're kind of going along. Gamification is not only fun, it's also fair, it's meaningful, as well as very inclusive. Let's quickly talk about how technology in the classroom has evolved in the last 2 centuries alone. So we can talk about how the blackboard in 1801 really shaped having visual learning in the classroom, being able to instruct and provide information to an entire classroom all at once. And that led to the evolution and the eventually addition to the overhead projector, which allowed more interactive instruction in the classroom. This is then very followed up to the photocopier, which allowed teachers the ability to very quickly mass produce printed material. And then we have personal computers that really brought us to the digital age and provided us the opportunity to bring more technology into the classroom. As early as the 1990s, we have the internet, which really allowed students to have more access to information and really pushed us into more a global collaborative instructional age. And then students can learn anywhere at any time with instructions from all over the world. And as we kind of talked about in this presentation, we have now entered the age of AI, where we're looking at more personalized instructions, automating tasks, and really providing support for a wide range of learners. There's so many really great tools for students to utilize in the classroom, and they really have significantly impacted how teachers add them to their classroom. Thinking about the impact on teaching, you're looking at the access of the content, the level of engagement, as well as the amount of time saved. With each addition to these innovative tools into the classroom, teachers are able to focus on what is most important, the student in the classroom. While these amazing technologies are amazing, they will never replace human relationships as well as meaningful instruction, in-person instruction. But that in person might be virtually as well. As I've kind of hinted in earlier parts of the presentation, technology is moving really fast, and sometimes a little bit faster than the educational system can keep up. As we mentioned, AI and trainings, it's very important to note that there are incredible benefits to allowing students to have immediate access and learning at their own speeds and being able to collaborate across the world. Students are able to use tools like AI and gamification and digital platforms to be more flexible and innovative in how they learn, which wasn't possible a decade ago. However, I would like to say that it comes at a real cost. Some teachers are honestly technology fatigued. They're having to adapt and retain so much information and juggle different platforms. And some teachers and school districts and communities are left behind due to funding gaps, as well as providing the proper infrastructure to allow these digital aged technologies to be entering into the classroom, which is causing a very big digital divide, and it's being seen across the world. However, there's also the issue, as I mentioned over and over again, the over reliance of AI. The fact that there are fears that technology will become a crutch and that we're going to lose that person to person, that human connection that we have in the educational system, because there's a lack of that human interaction and that deep learning might be lost. However, it's good to note that technology is not good or bad. It is how it is used, who it benefits, and how it values the support. Overall, technology currently is being utilized to support the student and meet them where they are at. Students and educators are required to do that critical thinking, making sure that things are used ethically and making sure that there is the design aspect, that it is very inclusive. I would like to propose a very interesting kind of concept. What does your ideal classroom look like? For me, it definitely blends technology and humanity. I grew up in the technology age. I love technology and having it in the classroom because I'm not afraid of technology. I don't think it will replace any educators. It would only enhance what they do. I think that AI really provides students with that personalized learning and that real time feedback and allowing lessons to match them where they are and providing the opportunity to meet them at their own pace is very important. At its core, it's really important for educators to really focus instead on maybe the material and learning styles, but looking at mentorship, making sure the students are doing critical thinking, but also that things like emotional development are still being met, and providing that human touch, which will always be irreplaceable. And I think of things like being globally connected, being able to learn from peers from all over the world, from all different diverse cultures, and being kept up to date on the most interesting and most current and knowledge that's available at our fingertips. Another really great thing when you think about like what does our classroom might look like in the future is inclusivity at its center, providing all students the ability to learn in whatever capacity that's most comfortable for them. And also being able to allowing students to see themselves in the curriculum, which is always so important. And making technology accessible. That is one of my personal most favorite part is this, and I'm hoping that as we try to fill in that technology divide, that technology becomes more and more accessible for those that might not have the privilege, because every learner should have the privilege no matter of their background. I will say that as you look and hear what I'm talking about, this isn't very tech heavy, it's student centered. Is looking at inclusivity, equity, and making sure that it's ethically grounded. That's what my future classroom would always look like. As I reflect back on this whole presentation, what is my role in all of this? I personally work in higher education. However, my husband is works in a Title I school, and I myself was a part of the educational system. I want to help students navigate this very complicated, interesting aspect of higher education and how students make it to their dream college. I will say that one of the things that like most motivates me is making sure that I'm helping bridge that gap in technology and equity, making sure that students feel like they can see themselves here in higher education one day, and providing that compassion and honestly that human-centered part and student-centered part, that inclusivity, providing that ethics. I want to make sure that students are pursuing their path to higher education through maybe my leadership, providing students the ability to feel like there's someone advocating for them so that they can see themselves as well as have the access to technology. Maybe this presentation will land on its lap on someone that might be able to make some meaningful changes in their school by showcasing how important AI is to them. I think that AI, as well as all different tools that are or gamification, help teachers. That teachers shouldn't be afraid of it. It really allows the opportunity for access, innovation, compassion, giving teachers the opportunity to meet their students where they're at and filling in the gaps as needed. So I hope that's my role. These are some of the references, materials that I use to create this presentation. And lastly, I want to thank you for your time sitting through my presentation about AI, as well as gamification and technology in the classroom. I hope this was extremely informative to all of you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly, and I wish all of you guys the rest of your day.